Good morning, good evening, good night. Famous words from Mr. Truman there. Hello, this is my first video of the ATPL Instrumentation series. Hello, my name's Alistair. I am a current student pilot. I have finished my ATPL ground school, and one subject that I thought was not covered enough on YouTube and online for information for students was instruments or instrumentation. I'm going to be doing a lesson today on the airspeed indicator, which is of great importance. One of the most important instruments we have in the cockpit. Could be argued otherwise, but they're all important. Anyway, this is going to be on the airspeed indicator. Please give me some feedback in the comments. Anything you think is better, could be done worse, was really good, blah blah blah. This, that, the other. Please let me know. I just thought, give it a go. Why not? So, we're going to be talking about the airspeed indicator, and let's start there. Below me, sorry, you can't see me. Below the title, we have two different measuring devices of airspeed. We have this thing, which was used in the very first stages of flight, which was in effect a piece of wood, very small, thin piece of wood. Could be compared to a ruler. That was bolted to the side of the aircraft, and it was stiff enough, and it was put with a gauge. So imagine an airspeed gauge down the bottom here. And as the dynamic pressure, which we'll see here in red, pushes against it, the static pressure, which we can see here, pushes back against it. That gives us a number on a chart. And that number is our indicated airspeed, as that is what's been indicated by the measuring device. Now, I'm not sure we're going to be training in any aircraft with one of those. So we have something on the right, this thing called a pitot tube. Now, if you'd studied your basic instrumentation pressure, which is the first topic of the instrumentation series, you will know what pitot tubes measure. They measure total pressure. They don't measure dynamic, they don't measure static, they measure total pressure. Now, total pressure, as we can see, what goes in the tube, we have dynamic as we move through the air, and we also have static. Sadly, we cannot eliminate the static going into the pitot tube, so we get what's called total pressure. So, an airspeed indicator, what does it look like to you and me? We have a face, usually with numbers between 0 and, let's just say 120, maybe up to 160 up here. We usually have a green arc, which is VNE. I'm not going to be talking about that, as that is something completely different, blah blah blah, relating to performance, which if you want to watch some good performance videos, ATPL class, he makes some great videos on performance. That is a dreadful green arc. I'm going to leave it. We have a green. Let's just do that. We have a green bit, which is our VNA, our normal operating speed. We have a yellow section here, which is sort of you may want to slow down. You're going to start overstressing the aircraft. And then past here, we have a red section, which is no, bad news, not good. So, however, instrumentation, we're not really bothered about that side of the instrument, as that is fairly straightforward. We want to know what is going on behind this clock face. Well, not clock face, as it's not a clock, but what is going on behind this needle. So, behind the needle, we have a gearing system. So it's sort of like this. Imagine that connected to a cog that is connected to the needle. Missed the needle there. Let's go with that. That'll do. And this, so this needle is connected to a gear system, which is connected to a line which spins off a spring, and that is caused by an expansion of what we're going to learn about being a capsule. Draw a capsule. This is my best attempt. Sorry for the drawings. Now, this capsule is directly connected to the pitot tube. Now, as we've just spoken about above, the pitot tube gets total pressure. Now, we don't want to see total pressure. We're not interested in total pressure. Ooh. We want the dynamic pressure, as that dynamic pressure equals indicated airspeed. Some of you may know that from POF. Dynamic pressure equals half rho v squared, which is also equal to IAS squared, as you know from POF. So we want to cancel out this static pressure, as we don't want it. We've got the total pressure and we want the static pressure. So we're going to be using this formula below here. Total pressure minus static pressure equals dynamic. Now, this is a very important formula. You should have covered it at the start of instrumentation. I'll write it out again here. Total pressure equals dynamic plus static. Ignore all the spelling. We don't care. So we also have to have a feed from what's called a static airport. Well, sorry, what is in effect static pressure. So this then fills the back of the capsule up with what we want being static pressure. So what we have going in, we have static pressure going into the capsule, so surrounding the capsule. Sorry, we have static pressure going into the instrument, so this is a sealed instrument. And we have pitot pressure, total pressure, going into the capsule here. So you're thinking, I've drawn this diagram, there's lots going on right now. What is going on? So we have pitot pressure going in here, and as we know, pitot equals, down here, as we know, pitot pressure, as we know, pitot pressure, or total pressure, equals dynamic plus static. We have dynamic plus static in here, so let's draw some dynamic pressure with a little bit of static pressure. And that will be fluctuating around, doing its thing, expanding, contracting. However, on the outside, we have static pressure, which has been fed by our static port. And if you can see here, we've got two static pressures. Now, pressure likes to be equal, doesn't like to be disturbed, so they're going to balance out, and they're going to end up countering each other, which is almost going to remove all of the static pressure. So once all of that static pressure has been removed, we are left with purely dynamic pressure. And that leads to an expansion or contraction of the capsule, whether it's increasing or decreasing, which will in effect push down on the spring mechanism, forcing the cog to spin, giving us an indicated airspeed. Now, one key important thing we've got to remember is the airspeed indicator shows indicated airspeed. Right, we need to learn about the different measures of speed. Now, as I mentioned, the airspeed indicator presents indicated airspeed, dynamic pressure. We want to, well, you may be thinking to yourself, what if we don't want to fly on dynamic pressure? Sorry, we don't want to fly on indicated airspeed. We may want to fly on TAS. We may want to fly on Mach number. That's not going to be covered in this. So we're going to learn about a very good acronym, a very common acronym known across lots of students, and that is the acronym ICE-T. I learned this. One of the best acronyms I've learned is a pretty cool drink. So we're going to start with indicated airspeed, as that is what we get out of the aircraft. Correction, that is what we get on the display. We are going to correct it for position. So whereabouts the static and the pitot tube is located on the aircraft, that can cause different errors. A lot of these are factored for, so a lot of the time we can assume IAS and CAS are very similar, if not the same. That leads us on to the next one, CAS, which has been calibrated. That's calibrated airspeed. And to get on to the next one, we have to factor in compressibility. Compressibility is a big factor. I'm not going to be talking about it as it's not covered in this part. Let's spell that right. Compressibility. And once we factor in compressibility, we get our equivalent airspeed. Oh my gosh, the spelling is just shocking. Anyway, that's not the point. We're here to learn, not to spell. Equivalent airspeed, yes. It's corrected for compressibility, and it's almost the final thing we have before TAS. ES isn't really used nowadays, because if we're going to be flying factoring compressibility, we're most likely going to be using a Mach number, which of course we'll cover in the machometer. And it's really only used at high altitudes and high speed. So as student pilots, I don't think we'll be doing either of those. So, but it's important to know, and it is important to consider. The final factor we need to consider is density. Density changes as we fly, as we climb, and as we descend. Our true airspeed varies to our indicated airspeed, as we'll come to find out in something called chicken tikka masala. Which we'll talk about in another video. But once we correct for density, we get our TAS, or our true airspeed. Now, true is the airspeed we fly through the air. That is, TAS is the airspeed we are currently going through the air, relative to nautical air miles. The final thing, actually, the penultimate thing we're going to be talking about is blockages. Now, this is a very important thing. It's, as studied in HPL, blockages, instrument errors is quite a big cause of accidents. I mean, we could mention Air France 443. If the pitot tube hadn't been blocked, could something else have occurred? Maybe not. But it is very important when flying in instrument conditions or at night, as you are heavily reliant on your instrument, and so we need them to read correctly. So there's an acronym that the bank merchants will know, being PUDSUD, which is useful. Oh, I've just noticed the spelling error. Well, not spelling error, worse than that, just an error, and that's meant to say sod. Yeah, the bank merchants will know PUDSUD, which is good enough. However, we should know about all of them, and they're very useful. They're very useful to remember when flying an aircraft. So at the top here we have our pitot tube, and when the pitot tube is blocked, we're likely to have an overread during a climb and an underread during a descent. Happy? POC PUD. Pitot overread climb, pitot underread descent. That's all you need to know. Then in the lower part we have sook and sod. So if the static port is blocked, it will underread in a climb, and if the static port is blocked, it will overread in a descent. So in my exam, I wrote out POC PUD and wrote out suck sod, as all you need to know is remember one of them and just remember it's flipped for the other. However, these are very important to know. Final thing we're going to talk about is the indicated airspeed instrument, and a few key bits you need to know about it. What I mentioned earlier was incorrect. VNE is not located here. It is located up here. That's my fault. I've just checked, and we all make mistakes, and I'd rather give you the right information than the wrong. So that's the first thing I'm going to mark on. That red tab is VNE, and it's pretty much the velocity that we should never exceed. Imagine it like that. If we get past that, structural failure could occur, wings could fold up, not good news. So VNE, so working our way around, we've got the blue marker, which is VYSE, standing for VY space SE being single engine, as we can't assume that this ASI is for a single engine aircraft. If it was for a single engine aircraft, then that would just be VY, as there is only one engine. VY being the best rate of climb, which you will probably cover in performance, if not if now VMCA is the minimum. It's basically the speed at which, if an engine failure occurs, we will be able to have control of the aircraft and land. If it reduces below that, if we attempt to go around, we may lose control of the aircraft and stall. So if there's ever an issue, that is the lowest speed we want to fly at to safely be able to go around. As instruments was my favourite subject, and I loved it a lot. Now you've got 21 questions on the UK bank. That shouldn't take you long. I mean, you could rattle through them all now. Give them a go. Any ones you get stuck, comment section is your friend on the bank. If not, speak to your instructors, or you could join the ATPL Discord. Not affiliated to them in any way, however, they did help during my ground school. And that's about it. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm just some student who sat the exams recently. Enjoyed instruments. Didn't enjoy some other subjects, that's for sure. And hoping I can provide some help in whatever way possible. And if I have got anything wrong, please let me know, as I'm still training to be a pilot. I'm not a pilot yet. I don't tell people I'm a pilot. I just say I'm a student. So we're not all perfect. Please let me know in the comments. And I wish you all the best for your studies, and I will see you soon. See ya!